Guys, listen, we can do it right now. Now, this is my conclusion, okay? I've talked about the crazy thing, the POWs and everything, but the thing is, what we did, I learned all these languages, and then this fellow that Brother Oakes set up as the first elder of China, he used to be my translation partner, okay? This is, gosh, 67, the summer back in Washington, D.C., okay? And I translate 11 European languages into English. I don't go the other way. In the language profession, you're only supposed to translate into your native tongue, But here, David Chen, we were getting him to translate. Now, he had been a major for Chiang Kai-shek, and then when they got kicked out of the continent on the Taiwan, he met the church, joined the church, went on his mission, went to BYU, graduated, and then he was getting his PhD from the University of Utah. And but then he came back to Washington, D.C. in the summer of '67 to show the Pentagon how stupid they were being, fighting his traditional enemy, Oriental communism. And all he could do was get a job at the Marriott hot shops as a busboy, So my partner and I, we took him in, and I got him a job there at the Pentagon. I did most of my translating there for the Assistant Chief of Staff of Intelligence of the Army, and translating from Chinese into English. And the first one was a simple little thing about how the light in a telescope, in the sniper's scope works, But and so he got paid for that. But the second one was on Oriental nuclear energy, and it was so silly I couldn't even afford to give it to the secretary to type it up because they were going to. And boy, when I did that, just a wall of ice came down between us, And I mean, I had known all these things about Europe, I'd studied all these things, but the Orient was so new to me and everything. And when we would drive up to Chinatown in Manhattan, we'd be walking down the street there in Chinatown, and these crowds of people would come out of their shops and everything to walk down the street behind this hero from nationalist China, I mean, it was so thrilling, but just that wall of ice, I thought, what can I do, And then once I saw him, a person from China reading a Japanese book. And I thought, I'll compliment him, maybe that'll do it, So I said, David, you really are a remarkable person. Here you were, a major in the Chinese Nationalist Army. You're getting a PhD from the University of Utah, and here you, a person from China, can read Japanese. And he put that book down. Okay, now you guys, don't take this too much, But he said, you people are pathetic. He said, you know nothing. He said, everybody in China can read Japanese, and everybody in Japan can read Chinese. We don't need guys like you in the Orient, translating 11 languages into your native tongue. We have 100 languages in China. You go to the stupid European Union, okay, they have 500 million people, 23 languages, translating them into the other 22, that's 56 different language directions. That's $250 billion a year for the translation budget. In China, they've got 100 different languages. Mandarin, Cantonese, Hainanese, Min, Wu, Miaohakai, just Taisanese, all these here. They're mutually understandable, so many of them. But their budget for the last 3,000 years, their translation budget, has been 0 pennies, okay? Because they don't blah to each other. You go down to Chinatown, sometime, and you'll see them going like they're making their characters like that, okay? 1,500 years ago, the Japanese said, boy, they've convinced us, we're going to do it their way, So the Japanese, they went over to these Chinese characters, and they got to use them down to the Second World War. They were trying to protect China from being made into a communist country, and by doing that, the people who came in stopped them from using the Chinese system entirely. But in the Book of Mormon, what we have. Now this is in Chinese, this is Japanese here, but in the Book of Mormon, it says the Book of Mormon, and in Spanish, for example, then they'll say El Libro de Mormón. Everything's different except the last word. Well, the last word here is the same in Japanese, but the point is, this in Mandarin Chinese, this is Mo Mon Jing. In Nipponese, this is Moru Mon Kei. That's book, okay? Now, you take the 10,000, now if you take Big Webster's Dictionary, 450,000 words, the 10,000 most used words will make up over 99% of everything everybody ever says. And the Chinese found out 3,000 years ago that everybody, all the 6,628 mutually unintelligible spoken languages in the world, the people use them all in approximately the same order of use in every language in the world. We don't need alphabets, we don't need characters on the computer. All we need is a system from 0 to 9,999. We identify each one of those words, and the whole world is communicating back and forth over the internet like that, okay? All right. So, but the point of all this is when David told me that, the thing is, they communicated about the 80% level on all subjects in the Orient, like that, you know. But it's only one country. They got 1.3 billion people. It's just one country. It's not where the language barrier is. That's the political barrier, about like in Europe, you know, because they communicate like that. And they think we're stupid because we don't understand it. And when David dumped that on me, you know, he spent most of his life after that as a professor of political science at BYU Hawaii, and he was the hero of the Chinese students there, you know. And the thing is that, but he was set aside as the first elder of China, the presiding elder over all of China, you know, by Dallin H. Oaks. And so basically when he said that, I knew these 11 different languages. My cousin had done all these things. What had I ever done, you know? So I thought, well, I'll learn languages, you know, and I did them. And so I wrote this book. And then I took it down to BYU. They didn't care about learning a language fast. They were trying to make a computer would translate. And I was there 5.5 years before it dawned on me that my program would do it, you know. And a little over a year later, we're written up in the Wall Street Journal that I did it. And then in 1992, this guy comes over and he writes this right here. This is the #1 journal of the language professions, and he is going to write about his pilgrimage to Provo. Okay? Now, so this is Jeffrey Kingscott talking. Several years ago, when I first started writing about machine translation, I was struck by the fact that Alps and Wydner, of the 4 first commercial machine translation companies, had an origin in Provo, Utah, a town of which I had not previously heard. To cut a long story short, I then kept coming across Provo in other contexts. I started using WordPerfect software, developing Provo, et cetera, et cetera. What is this place where everything is happening, I asked myself. As the world's #1 reporter in language matters, he is the general editor of the #1 journal of the language professions. It seemed to me I must investigate this phenomenon. Then right over here he says, Provo's in the Utah Valley, and it quickly became apparent that, in short, the Utah Valley is for languages what Silicon Valley is for computers, okay? Now, this was in 92. In 2002, at when the Governor Levitt gave the state address, just before the Winter Olympics here, he mentioned how that word processing software came from Utah, WordPerfect. Networking software came from Utah, Novell. The internet came from Utah. I was listening right on when he said that, okay, over the on television, okay, and but where does that come from, okay? The thing is, the Japanese and Chinese, they work with characters at the 80% level. In Mosiah 8:13 in the Book of Mormon, they talk about how they worked with their characters at the 100% level. Because in the Orient, what they do is they talk about, now here is the grammar, basically, of all the languages in the world from the Greek point of view. And they say nobody's ever going to understand this as a science. It's just always going to be an art, a written art. Grammatica techni in Greek. You know, it'll never be a science. When we put this on the internet, the U.S. Defense Department said this is the technology of all the languages in the world. It's how all human beings mentally look at what they physically see. The Orientals go along and physically see, but the Nephites have how we mentally look, okay? Okay, now you guys, here's the whole point. The LDS Church, its biggest problem right now, and this is the conclusion right here, okay, is there's about 14 million baptized members of the church, about 1 million children of record. There's about 15 million, about maybe half of them English-speaking, but a third of them are Spanish-speaking, okay? But the leaders of the church say that if we should go down, people from up here down among Latin America, we would think that 80 to 90% of those people are inactive. The young missionaries converted to be baptized, but their state churches, they don't have attending at church. So the church wanted to know if they could figure some way that they could call 20,000 senior-age couples that served in bishoprics and stake presidencies and Relief Society presidencies to go around to these people. They'd think they'd just be they would just think that they'd be home teachers or something like that. But they used to say in the last century that there was no potential for technology transfer, like from English-speaking North America to Spanish-speaking Latin America. Because our 300 million people up here, we have the highest standard of living in the world. There are 400 million down there. So many of them are so far down, you know. And they want so much to transfer our technology, but the big barrier is the language barrier. The only ones that learn are the children of wealthy people. You go down to BYU, you go across from the Lavelle Edwards Stadium, there's a big parking lot there. In the southwest corner, there's the English Language Center there. And about 40% of the people come from the Orient, 40% are native Spanish speaking. And they spend 2 years, and this was a decade ago, 2 years and $40,000. And they pass the test of English as a foreign language, the TOEFL test, okay? And then they can legally enroll in a U.S. college or university. But other than that, they can't do it. But nobody else in Latin America does. So when these 40,000 senior-age people come down, and they say, we've never seen any Anglos, adult Anglos, who've ever learned English. The point is, we have these are the old 6 missionary discussions here, and this is the first discussion. And the point is it used to take the young missionaries, young English-speaking missionaries, an average of 8 months to master giving the first 6 missionary discussions in Spanish, okay? But there is no record of any senior-age people ever learning even the first discussion, except for Darren Perkins, who did it in 17 and a half hours. He got it down cold, and he gave it to his neighbor, Bishop Carlos Sanchez, and he was timed by one of the top experts in the United States, you know. 2 other guys had done it before that, you know. But this was so revolutionary that we were told to go out and do it with 100 people, but it's taken us a decade, but we've got it all done. It's all being demonstrated over the internet, okay? Now, what we do here, the bottom line is the original English. The second line is the way the Spanish General Authorities wanted it in Spanish. The third line is my old invention. I'm the inventor of cost-effective machine translation. The thing is, you go onto the internet. Has anybody ever seen freetranslation.com on the internet? Who? You have? You do. God bless you, darling. Yeah. And so the thing is, you translate from English into 11 languages, 8 of them back. The computer will automatically, instantaneously do 85% of the function of the human mind. It's 3 up to 5 pages. Millions of people we've been using it. It's offered to the world by the world's largest translation company. And I have a letter from the guy who started it to the man who's been over translation for the LDS Church, how I invented it. Okay, it came from my book here. Okay, all right. And when that happened, my programmer went out and he made WordPerfect out of it. I used to pay him $5 an hour, you know. He got up to 840 million with that, okay? Yeah, and then a bunch of the other guys, the government, the whole point of this was the government wanted, okay, so now here's the giant big thing we're talking about. President McKay says he wants our people to work together by the law, and that's how we can save the Constitution, okay? Now, we're not talking about, we're going to show you right now how we can save it, but it's not going to be just the elders. The sisters have got to help out, okay? Is that all right, too? Okay. So anyway, the thing is that what we have is let me just see here. Basically, General Eisenhower, he knew how evil the Soviet Union was. And so what he did, he went to Al Gore's father, and he asked him, he was president, Eisenhower, and he asked him if he could pass the Senate. He was over the Senate Interstate. He was over the Senate Highway Committee. If he could pass the Interstate Freeway Act, okay, they did, and then that gave the government this little strips of land going all the way across the country, and in absolute secrecy from the people, the Advanced Research Project Agency of the Pentagon, they buried this fiber optic cable network under all the freeways, okay? And then the issue was, if somebody could invent this,